and powered by Graphite GTC. Our fest aims to bring together the world's leading scientific minds, business leaders, influential thinkers, and the spirited students. This year's theme, A Voyage to the Zenith, focuses on capturing the advancements in the business, socio-economic, academic, and technological world and the changes it has undergone since the COVID pandemic. The title sponsor of Tryst 2022 is Graphite GTC, a no-code development platform which allows users to create enterprise-grade web applications without ever having to write a single line of code. The visual tools provided within the platform allows business users and subject matter experts to actively participate in the software development process with reduced risk and better communication. To know more about Graphite, you can visit the Graphite booth at the Lecture Hall complex in IT Delhi. Now, you must be wondering the brains behind this brilliant company. Well, we have both the co-founders of Graphite GTC with us today. First, we have with us Mr. Chris Galli, the co-founder and the technical brains behind Graphite GTC. Chris is the CEO and the lead for the technical design and management of Graphite GTC, a Philadelphia-based firm. Chris has over 20 years of experience in the software development and insurance business. Prior to this, he was the co-founder and architect of the company Admin Server, which also has its expertise in vision-guided revolutionary development of policy administration systems. He serves on the board of the directors of the Franklin Institute of Science and Technology and is also an active member and contributing member of the Barnes Foundation. Our second guest needs no introduction. He is the business mind behind Graphite GTC, Mr. Brian Rishford. Mr. Brian is an entrepreneur, an investor, the managing principal, and a board executive. He has over 30 years of experience across America, Europe, and all the other continents in the growth technology, renewable energy, real estate, and project development. He is the chairman of Graphite GTC, the title sponsor of the Fest Tryst 2022. With this, I would like to hand over the discussion to these two dignitaries and ask them to have a spirited discussion on the topic, the future of digitalization.
Before this, there will also be a video, so we'd like to show that.
It's a team effort, a big team, made up of people who aren't always speaking the same language. It's expensive, it's slow, it's error-prone, and it often leaves the business user the one person who truly understands what's being built and why on the outside looking in. But what if you could build and deploy a robust enterprise-class application as easy as drawing it on a screen? The greatest developments in computing have been those that created simple solutions for complex problems. Each step along the way has removed another obstacle standing between direct human-computer interaction. Graphite GTC is another leap forward in this lineage, allowing the true experts in any industry to build their own modern enterprise system without the costs, delays, and confusion of the traditional development process. It's all done without coding. Using nothing more than an intuitive graphic interface, your industry expertise is translated directly into a full-featured system, including portals, business logic, process flows, integration points, and database definitions. The architecture is solid, and the entire system is truly cloud-based. Build enterprise-class applications better, faster, and cheaper. It's the future of software. Enterprise apps, faster, smarter, and more secure. Prove it. We challenged a hand coder with over a decade of experience to a bake-off. The challenge? Who could build an interest calculator faster? Traditional coding is a long, error-prone, and a resource-heavy process that often leaves the final solution flawed and open to security risks. Good developers take years to train and are hard to come by. Currently, there are more open software development jobs than there are developers. And every year, the gap only widens. To tackle this shortage, a revolution in the development of applications needs to happen.
application development has to move away from the long process of traditional development. And a new age of no-code development is the only solution. This is where Graphite Studio comes in. One Graphite Studio developer with a couple weeks of training can not only compete with a professional developer, they can build the project 4 times faster, and their solution comes with all the following out-of-the-box features.
So that was just a brief visual overview of Graphite, and I hope it shared and showed a visual pictorial of how simple the system is to use after you get a couple weeks behind it. So we're going to talk a little bit about digital transformation here, but hopefully that was a peek into what the platform is, and if you want more information, please stop by our booth at the Lecture Hall Center.
So now I'd like to invite Ms. Meghna Gupta. She is a marketing and sales development specialist, and she'll be moderating this session for Mr. Chris and Mr. Brian.
Thank you. So, hi Chris, hi Brian. So my first question would be to the both of you that could you give us like a background about yourself and what led you to play a role in today's digital transformation?
Sure, thanks. So what led me to play a role in today's digital transformation era was not really a direct path. By way of background, I'm an electrical engineer. I studied electrical engineering and became an engineer for the General Electric Company, which is a large global conglomerate, very traditional industrial company that makes plastics and jet engines and power industrial equipment, and then built a very large, one of the largest commercial finance portfolios and diversified financial services portfolios in the world, but kind of made a transition from engineering into manufacturing, into finance, and then into financial products and ultimately private equity. But when I was at GE, I had an amazing experience working in the aviation industry. I spent almost 7 years in the aviation industry, and I got to work with an incredibly powerful company, which was an airline which created and disrupted the airline industry by the name of Southwest Airlines. Has anybody heard of Southwest Airlines? It created what is now like the low-cost model for airlines across the global industry. And if you took the first 3 decades of airlines in the United States from like the 1970s when they truly got broadly commercialized until almost 2000, cumulatively none of the airlines made money. It was a cumulative net loss. The only airline that made cumulative profits in those 3 decades was Southwest Airlines, and it's because they went after the market with a a high value, low cost model. And it meant that they delivered to their customers a high amount of value, but they delivered it for a low amount of price. And that was very profound to me, and it stuck with me. And as my career progressed and I moved on from General Electric into private equity and worked with companies, actually our fund specialized, Cerberus Capital specialized in actually working with companies that were failing and maybe were at risk. They needed some management change, some process, maybe some financial injection or financial reengineering. We would look at where value could be sought out, and that high value, low cost model became very important in terms of our strategy to create value for mature companies. Now, fast forward to today, a lot of companies are in need of digital transformation, and we're going to talk about that over the next hour. But at that point in my career, I didn't know what digital transformation was. I was focused on industrial companies and transportation companies at the time. But that concept of high value, low cost was very important. And as I moved from private equity to then found our current firm, R&R Global Partners, which is a private investment firm that does private equity and venture capital, we really wanted to seek out and find disruptive companies that would deliver high value and low cost. And through that process, I met Chris many years ago and was just really floored by the vision of how to disrupt the software industry by introducing a very simplified approach to software development, which also followed this thesis of or ethos and approach and theory of delivering high value but at a low cost, and being able to reduce the life cycle costs of not only developing but also maintaining software. So today that's become incredibly important, and we're going to talk about how that translates into digital transformation. But that's how I came to find digital transformation, and Chris and I meeting each other and becoming business partners.
Hi guys. Hello. Can you guys hear me? All right, awesome. My path into digital transformation started somewhere in the late 90s. Closer? All right. Oh, okay. So in the late 90s, when the web technology was really taking roots in the e-commerce space, one of the things me and a couple of other people identified that this should be applied to back office software for large companies. And we were in the insurance space, which was heavily invested in the COBOL world, and also applications in the desktop PC. So they were taking mainframe programs and turning it into COBOL, turning COBOL mainframe programs into PC desktop apps. And there were a lot of problems coming along with that, as in the PC wasn't as powerful as the mainframe in some cases, so they couldn't transform large applications. And the web sounded like a pretty good way to do it the right way. So we were the very first people to start a company before the term startup and things like that, unicorns existed. So we started taking some really old school large applications and started turning it into web applications. Along the way, we built a big company, sold it to Oracle and so on and so forth. But during that time, we identified that whereas in COBOL, you can sit in one terminal and build a pretty robust application with one language and have end users have access to it, the modern web world has 7 technologies at least to build a simple web application. And then on top of that, layers and layers of frameworks keep getting added. And every time you're trying to build something, a new language becomes popular and people start running after it. So we looked at that and said, how can you term something a digital transformation when you use the same old technology to just make it look pretty in screen-wise, but keep the same technology? And so we said we got to radically transform the way that is being done. So the genesis of that thought was Graphite, which said we're going to build a way to build software, large-scale software, or just simple web applications, where the person that understands the business can work with developers hand in hand, remove that friction, and thus enhance the quality of the product generated and also increase the speed in which they can go to market. That's my background in digital transformation.
Thank you for that. So, Chris, my next question is to you. How do you see digital transformation being applied to mature businesses and startups?
So, I'll just start with startups. Startups are actually creating something new. So, in essence, they are digitizing anyways, but they may affect digital transformation as in they take some old school business and transform it to a modern way. So they are digital transformers to begin with. Like if you take any of the Ubers and stuff, they take some old way of doing something and then create an app for it. And in essence, that's by default digital transformation. The old world companies, like the large manufacturing companies or banks and insurance companies, that are actually the majority of the planet's usage of capital or creating jobs and stuff like that. They wrote software in the 50s to move from paper into computers. Now what's happening is they're stuck in that world. And nimble companies, especially in Silicon Valley and more so in modern India, are really affecting them in the sense that young kids, such as people sitting here, are saying, we got new tools, we can take that old stuff and quickly bring it online and really affect the revenues or in fact their existence of the old school companies. So these companies are now saying, we got to transform. We can't be just living in this old technology. We need to transform. That's digitization, digital transformation in the West. In countries like India, where things are still done on paper, digital transformation means what the Western companies did in the 50s and the 60s. Take the paperwork out and make it technology savvy. And especially in India, since everybody has a cell phone, that's a great opportunity for a lot of young people to really look at, like for example, any government organization and see how you can disrupt that business and literally provide much better value for end customer or the citizens, so to speak.
Brian, would you also like to add something there?
Sure. Yeah. As the Indian economy has risen, it has come to dominate the outsourced technology, let's say, sector globally, and has done extremely well at that, and I believe will continue to do that. Playing a role in helping to modernize the world's digital infrastructure is going to be an incredible opportunity for India moving forward. If you look at where more than 90% of today's systems integrators and developers, there's 27 million worldwide, spend their time, it's on maintaining existing systems. And the increased amount of maintenance and operational efforts that go into that will really continue to explode as more and more systems come online. So our one view is, for mature companies, that starts to accumulate a lot of cost to not only maintain those systems. If you take, COBOL, Chris mentioned COBOL as a language. There's a lot of fintech and insurtech businesses that are legacy companies that are operating on these COBOL systems. Many of those programming languages, there aren't resources to continue to update and maintain these. So as that becomes extinct, there's going to be pressure to rewrite those, to modernize those systems, to lower the ongoing operations and maintenance costs. So to transform those, to make them more efficient, add new features, make them more nimble, not only on the front end but on the back end, I think is going to be a tremendous impact for existing mature businesses. And as Chris said, the startups are going to force them to go through a digital transformation process because they're being disrupted by a lot of these startups. We heard yesterday from Bharat Pay about how they're disrupting the traditional financial banking sector and lending sector and payment sector. Same thing's happening virtually in every single industry, whether that's online, technology enabled, or a brick and mortar service or product company. So I think that's a big dynamic in the market. And then for startups, we look at it like, all startups go through a series of many iterations. So when you launch or take your first minimum viable product into the market, that will certainly not be what your end state is of your company. It's your first phase. When you got customer feedback, you're going to pivot, you're going to do some micro pivots, you're going to iterate. Every time you go through those iterations, you're actually going to be refreshing your software, you're going to be updating your systems, you're going to be modifying your applications. If that's a lot of cost and a lot of time, you can actually miss the market as you're pivoting and modifying your product to go to market. So applying digital transformation in a startup environment is being, very quick to adapt as you're going to market and integrate those changes, but in a way that is not costly, that is not time consuming, because as a startup goes to market, capital is very precious, resources are very precious, you don't have unlimited people and capital. So doing these changes efficiently and bringing those online in a very nimble fashion without building an app and then getting feedback and then you have to kind of trash that app and build a whole new application is very important. So the technology that we're bringing into the market will help to enable that, but it's one of the dynamics that we see is important to the digital transformation for startups in comparison to mature businesses. So let me just survey the audience. How many folks here are either involved in a startup or have an idea for a startup? Raise your hands. Okay, maybe smaller amount. Who would like to be involved in a startup of some kind? Raise your hand. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Good. Well, listen, I think there's a incredible technology culture here at IITD, and I know there's a great intent to bolster a lot of the focus on entrepreneurship and launching and getting involved in translating many of the concepts and ideas that you have. So there should be ample opportunity to participate in that as you guys move forward. Brigna?
Yeah. So what is the no-code revolution and how does that translate to digital transformation for you guys? We've heard so much over the last 3 days about no-code revolution being started and being there. So how do you think that translates to digital transformation?
I think the original reason for no-code revolution started off with the fact that there's always a friction between the person that understands the business and the person that's writing the software to get the solution. So what Y2K in year 2000 showed the world is the fact that there's not just 200,000 programmers in the world, but really millions of programmers in the world. Obviously, you guys know where those millions are. But the problem that so that gave them the thought that, wow, we can just literally change all these mainframe programs and modernize them and create digital transformation very, very easily. But by the time the late 90s rolled around, they figured out that there was a huge communication gap between what the users wanted for these things to be digitally transformed to how quickly they can get that, achieve that. And so people started looking at different ways to address this, and no-code revolution is the one that is, I believe personally, and probably biased, that is the right way to do it. Do something where the hundreds of millions that don't understand software programming, that are scared by it, pull them in to the, into the group of software development in many different ways. Maybe they can just look at what you're doing to understand what, so they can give you better feedback, or in fact even get involved and actually build the softwares side by side. That is what I think the no-code revolution brings to the world, to digital transformation.
So, my next question is that what is technology debt? What can you guys explain what that is, and what risk does it poses for the world?
Talk a little louder.
Oh, sorry. So, what is technology debt? What is that like, and what risk does it poses for the world?
What is technology debt? Who here has heard of the term technology debt? Anyone? Who has heard of technology? Come on, everybody knows heard of technology. Okay. Does anybody know what debt is? Debt is, a financial kind of position where you're borrowing something. Okay. When you put technology and debt together, the word technology debt means that if you have an old legacy system, it kind of is incurring this, we call it a technology bloated balance sheet, which from a financial terms means that you have a large liability of technology. So imagine you're running this old system that needs lots of maintenance, that has the risk of breaking down. You're adding resources constantly to maintain it. This is happening all over the world. It's pervasive in every single sector. That defines technology debt. So the amount of cost that it would require a company to invest overnight. So even though you might not be able to complete the project overnight, but if you had to fund a project overnight to rewrite an application, that would define the cost of technology debt. So that's more or less the definition of technology debt in financial terms. In some significant companies, the technology debt is literally in the billions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, and certainly in the single millions of dollars in most companies. Now why is this? Well, you write a software application, launch a technology, and you just start operating, and then you're evolving your business, so you start to make changes to it. As you start to make those changes, you're maintaining now conflicts between databases and software languages, so you're adding people to kind of manage a lot of these, potential conflicting things to ensure that you don't have operational issues or functional issues as you evolve or expand and you scale your business. Your software needs to scale with that. So over time, many companies start to incur large amounts of technology debt. So technology debt represents a liability to the company of, if I have to modernize that system, what is the cost of that going to be to modernize that system? As we talk about digital transformation for a mature company is taking those legacy systems and modernizing them. So it means, what is the cost of modernization is often equivalent to the technology debt of that company. So one of the things that that we are hoping to solve is by introducing a platform that allows companies to actually operate on a future-proof technology platform where you can press a button, it hits purge, it wipes out basically your old software and all the new enhancements that you've built. You hit the build button and it automatically builds the new software and replaces it, and then you can put that back into production. You saw a very simplified image of that in the video that we ran before the Q&A discussion started, but it is in practice about that simple. So one of the companies or firms that we support is the U.S. Department of Energy. There's some 8 to 10 critical applications that run on that. A system of that size would take, you would normally do like production releases of that software maybe, what, Chris, once a year or 18 months? And how often do we do production changes? So at least every quarter, and there's even, upgrades that happen in between that. So it enables you to kind of like iterate your software, upgrade, stay current, but most importantly, not accumulate this technology debt over time and really future-proof your system. So that's my answer to technology. If Chris wants to add something.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on that and say it is the single most important term that large companies in the U.S. are grappling with. I'll give you an example. Have you guys heard of the Log4j issue that happened a couple of months ago? So companies wrote maybe hundreds of systems, if not thousands of systems, using a library called Log4j. Years went by, and everybody got it on their resume. They looked pretty, that they know the Log4j technology. And then they found out that hackers were basically infiltrating into this library and stealing information, whatever it is. So that is an example of technical debt. Now, a large bank that has, let's say, 1,000 applications using Log4j has to now spend money to have developers that were otherwise doing things that are moving the bank forward to give better value to its customers, have to stop doing that. And they have to go back and start removing Log4j and introduce some other library that does the same thing. So that is what technical debt is. So software around the world is full of technical debt. And so even if these companies decide to upgrade all of those software and remove the existing technical debt, by the time they finish removing all of it, technology has moved on, and they're back in the technical debt situation. So there's really nothing they can do. So they hire another bunch of programmers or outsourcing company to rewrite it for the latest technology. What we're doing is looking at it in a completely different way. We're saying let's have a platform that generates that application. So we will keep upgrading the platform. For example, if the platform, in fact, it didn't use Log4j, but assume that we had used Log4j as one of the items it generates, all the code related to Log4j, we would have fixed it, sent the new version of the platform. People would just simply open up those 1,000 applications, push the build button like Brian mentioned, and pretty much instantaneously the Log4j problem is eradicated. Of course, you have to go through your system testing and user acceptance testing, but your biggest chunk of time, which is having thousands of developers remove the use of this bad technical debt, if you will, from those applications, is completely eliminated. So without a doubt, in my mind, this is the way software will be developed in the future.
Chris, so what inspired you to create Graphite GTC, the no-code platform?
Thanks, Marina. So it's exactly the same reason I just talked about. The main reason was remove that friction between business users and developers. When I built my first company, we found that business users are very savvy when it comes to software. If you remove that friction between let's say you're running a software company providing solutions for a bank or insurance company in my case, when we found that we somehow figure out a way to connect the people that understand the business, whether they're business analysts or end users, with the developer. And we did it in a certain way. We put logic in XML, not to bore you guys, in the very first iteration. What we found that business users, they didn't think XML was coding, so they all got involved with the developers very easily. So we said, wait a minute, if you remove this friction and make it much more easier for the non-programmer, quote unquote, to work with the programmer or learn how to build stuff, we're going to just transform the way applications are built. And that's kind of like the reason why we said, let's do a visual development. So that was number one. And number two was the same reason that I just talked about, the technical debt. By the time people modernize a mainframe application, by the time they use, let's say, C++ and HTML, JavaScript, by the time they spend millions of dollars to change that application, the industry goes, oh no, you got C# and Java now, and you have to use EXTJS or jQuery, and then you get all your people to keep updating your application to the new library. By the time you're done with that, then they go, oh no, it's Angular now and React. And so people keep updating, and that has to come to an end because it's a huge loss of productivity. And when you lose productivity, you're not moving the human civilization forward. And so that's one of the reasons why we decided to build Graphite.
And if you were here at the last session, I think it's Anik from McKinsey, he mentioned that you need to understand technology and understand not coding. It's not about coding. Coding is the steps to create an application. And, you know, a lot of our branding says develop solutions, not code. The point is to build the solution. So as you graduate from IITD, whether you're going to be a technology solution provider or if you go into consulting to provide solutions to a client, or you're an entrepreneur that identifies a pain point or a problem, and then you're going to launch a company, you're really solving problems and you're delivering solutions to solve those problems. That is the game. That is what it's all about. It's not about writing code to address those problems. So that's why we think this is important to be like a revolution. Like, let's not worry about the coding part. Let the platform deal with that, but focus on what your client needs. Focus on what the problem is in the marketplace or within the technological arena that you're acting in, whether it's chemistry or physics or civil engineering or, you know, fintech as a web application or social media app. Those are really the things that need to be, you know, addressed and solved, and that's where value gets created. It's not in writing millions of lines of syntax. There's technology that addresses that today in a repeatable, reproducible, and superior quality fashion. So skip that. Quite frankly, let me ask this. Who here is a coder? Who here has written software applications? Okay, great. So about maybe 20%. I'm going to ask you, sir, could you just stand up and share your name and tell me, like, what do you like to code, or do you like to kind of build things?
So basically, I'm in my final year in undergrad of computer science.
Okay.
And so I
Okay.
Using PyTorch, TensorFlow. So I think the the basic thought process that goes into it like is analyzing the data and then coming up with what algorithms will be useful. Like to give an example, like for a supervised classification task. So sometimes it may be possible with random forest decision trees, or sometimes we may need to use a neural network. So that is where the thinking process goes into, like what will suit given a problem statement, and then creating is the easier part. So I think, yeah, so it's like develop solutions and not code. Like it's really that's what that goes into it. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. And for everyone else in the audience, that what he just described is, put your efforts towards like the really interesting stuff, the really higher value elements of delivering a solution, and that's where I think the opportunity is to make your jobs more exciting, make your career more exciting. And for those of you that did not raise your hand, if you are involved in a business or a function or technology, if you have a need down the line to develop some automated or digital process, if you don't have the tools yourself, you'll have to seek out someone to do that development for you. This is a process that will enable you to kind of control your own destiny and be able to develop at least basic applications yourself. And then if you want to focus on that, you can, obviously develop highly complex applications and solutions also.
So Brian, you did talk about how like it's so easy to use Graphite's platform for students. So what role do you see students and educational institutions, especially like the IIT, playing in the digital transformation?
So I think digital transformation is kind of like this big word and concept, but I think as modernization of systems take place, I think there's like this catch up on technology debt, but as students and institutions get involved, I believe the ability to have any major, whether you're an engineer, whether you're a business major, whether you're in the field of medicine or marketing, communications, legal, any function should have the ability to take a role in digitization. So if I'll make it up, but if you're a finance major and you're going to work for a job with McKinsey to consult, wouldn't it be great if you were equipped to go into a consultancy for a financial services firm, and your recommendation after looking at their processes is that they need to do some kind of automation and digitization? Well, it'd be great if you could actually help them implement that rather than making a paper consultancy recommendation that says, hey, go to your IT department and go build this application and go through a lengthy process. But instead, as a consultant, you could actually deliver that as a productive deliverable by, through your consultancy without having to go assemble like a team and then, go through this lengthy process. On the flip side, if you're a product engineer, we saw in some of the product presentations, there's small hydro turbines that are being built. So this is a physical product that got pitched to us to solve some of these remote village power issues that exist around India for distributed power. Well, that's a very physical product that these engineers from IITD are trying to solve with small hydro turbines. Ultimately, they're going to have to either create like an e-commerce platform or some kind of digital process to manage their supply chain with vendors and sub-vendors and potentially folks that are managing the network or identifying where the greatest needs are. Even if you have this very, very physical product, you're going to need digital solutions to carry that forward. So enabling even the more technically let's say, position folks, but from a different discipline. Maybe that's more physics and thermo or fluid dynamics rather. They should also have the basics to build their own web applications very simply without having to, become an expert in that. So that's where I think institutions and students can really help to embrace and spread this so that all functions can be proficient and capable, because I think it'll help to advance all functions and areas of education together.
So, Chris, Graphite is a pure no-code platform. So how does that differ from low-code, and why is being like no-code so important to the digital transformation?
Yeah, that's a good question. So with low code, what you're looking at is you're still telling people that you still have to code. And so that's keeping away a lot of people, affecting digital transformation and, removing technical debt. So with no code, we are saying that we and others in that space are saying that you don't have to think that you're coding. You don't even have to worry about it. You come in with the mindset of, I'm using something completely different paradigm and solving problems. And so that's why I think digital transformation can be done wholesale instead of pick and choose the most important things needed right now in any large organization. So that's why I think no code, I personally believe, is a better option than low code. Low code is just saying, well, I'll just do this in little steps because I'm too scared. No code is saying, no, we're going to make a bold move to change the way things are done. And we all know that the world only moves forward when there's a bold move.
Thank you for that.
I think the other thing to add to that, from a business perspective, I never really understood why low-code platforms exist, because yes, it adds some productivity, but you still have to have all the disciplines of resources to do coding in addition to now adopt a low-code platform. So in some ways it seems redundant. I know there are certain efficiencies that if you can do part of your code on a low-code platform, but the kind of leap forward to just eliminate the need to do any syntax programming is, I think, how to purely accelerate the digital transformation in a very wholesome and fulsome way, just to build on what Chris has said.
So, Brian, ESG and sustainability is an accelerating importance in the society and the corporations today. So how does ESG and digital transformation intersect?
That's an interesting one. So the question is, how does ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance, as a movement, and I think not just an initiative, but a way of doing business and operating, converge, converge or intersect with digital transformation? Well, here's what I would say. They can be competing objectives in some respects, but the way that I see them converging is by, if you're going to modernize systems to introduce ESG and have positive impact to the environment, I think that can be become implemented. We heard a couple presentations yesterday that by introducing technology and certain products, you can actually do negative things to kind of move the needle in the direction against, like, and increase your carbon footprint. So one thing that McKinsey wrote, so before this panel we had some of the partner from McKinsey speak, and McKinsey last year wrote an article that said that data centers globally consume about 2% of all energy today. And if you think about the proliferation of social media and all the power that is needed to accelerate all the information management and technology and power that we consume, just in the data space, it's expected, per the McKinsey report, that data center energy consumption will go from 2% of global energy to somewhere between 8 and 11% of global energy by 2030. So you can take all the green initiatives, all the sustainability initiatives, and if we make a movement globally in energy of 6%, that means we won't have moved the needle if the proliferation of information services and data center hosting explodes by 400 to 550% just in the next 8 years. So how do you solve that? Well, just, through our work with the Department of Energy, and we actually did not do this intentionally. We did it after we did the system implementation. We measured and benchmarked the previous system to the system that is running on Graphite, and the carbon footprint of, just due to the size of the database, which translates fairly linearly in terms of the amount of energy that is required to host, was reduced by over 95%. Response times increased by 7.5-fold. So all these things result in lower energy consumption, lower resource consumption, and really ultimately decarbonization of your IT systems. So if you're sitting there and saying, hey, how much energy does my laptop consume? It's not a lot. But if you take what Facebook is doing, TikTok is doing, all the hosted Azure and AWS systems globally, it's moving from 2% to 11% of our global energy consumption. If we can reduce even a fraction of that by 90%, it can make a incredible movement in terms of sustainability. So in terms of modernization, we're talking about, digital transformation. As systems are modernized, using, platforms like this will dramatically reduce the carbon footprint and increase the sustainability of your software and your IT infrastructure moving forward. So while it's an unintended positive consequence of Chris and the team's creation, it is an incredible one impacting the future of sustainability.
Thank you. So Chris, it is known to us that Graphite GTC's no-code platform can be easily learned by all people, from all different backgrounds like business, hospitality, medical, technical, and non-technical, So how would non-technical people that have never participated in any type of digital projects or done anything around coding be instrumental to the digital transformation?
I mean, that's simple. They can just use Graphite and, affect that digital transformation. So let's take an example. Let's say a student here has an idea, but in fact, this literally happened in one of the pitch events where one of the students that was pitching an idea came to me and said, I don't know how to code. I have this great idea, which in fact it was, but I've been through 3 CTOs, which obviously translates to him saying, I brought in, it's a small startup, 3 or 4 students. So when he says CTO, it obviously means that he hired 3 guys that told him that they can code stuff and they couldn't get it done. And instead of telling him, oh, send me this stuff, I'll put a programmer on it, or raise some money, go to HCL or Infosys and find a developer there. My answer to him was, just learn Graphite and just build it yourself. We know that has been done because we see it in we've seen examples of it in a similar situation in in a university in the U.S., and IIT, it's in a different caliber. I didn't even blink to know that that guy will be able to do it himself.
Thank you. Brian, my question to you is that in the last panel, Nitin from Adani Group had talked about change and the need to adapt for companies. Like, he gave us examples of Yahoo, Hotmail, companies who didn't change and adapt to the changing times, which they didn't evolve with time, which led to them going out of business. And some of the factors involved there were convenience, price, and empowerment. So how does no code fit into this?
So how does no code fit into convenience, price, and
Convenience, price, and empowerment.
okay, convenience, price, and empowerment. So so in the last lecture they said high-tech companies like Yahoo and Hotmail, these were high-tech companies, but they failed to evolve. They failed to adapt. They didn't make themselves future-proof. So one of the big features that we speak about is, how do you future-proof your technology? How do you always prepare for, evolving? We have this kind of, we call it a little bit of this kitschy or tongue-in-cheek logo here that shows evolution, right? How do you evolve? How are you looking forward? Making sure that you're looking at the next phase of what's happening. I think that's what we're talking about. So in terms of, doing that, making sure that you're always preparing for what the future holds and ensuring that you can do that, I think, through this type of digital transformation. Ease of use, making sure that it's cost effective, and also easily adaptable, which are things that those other companies had not embraced, is something that we think is important and something that we've embraced as a company to do so.
Thank you for sharing all these answers with us today. So would you like to give some closing remarks?
I mean, just a couple thoughts. I mean, in terms of digital transformation, IATD and the student body and faculty and as an institution, inclusive of your alumni at large, are known worldwide to be on the forefront of education and technology, and I think therefore, digital transformation is certainly expected and will be expected to be in a sweet spot of IATD's participation. And I'm sure not only the startups that come out of here, but the research and the way that the institution operates, will certainly, I think, tell its story in the future. But I think in terms of, embracing ways to accelerate digital transformation will not only set up each of you as individuals as you move through your careers and move on to your either graduate studies and then your postgraduate careers, embracing that, digital transformation in whatever way it translates to you, whether you're in computer science directly, or if you're in more, if you're in physics, or if you're in management studies. All these, we're in a digital world. It's only going to accelerate. It's only going to become more sophisticated and complex. So the more that you can embrace technologies that integrate with advancing what you're doing, whether that is the sole focus of what you're doing, technology and software and digitization, or if that's an enabler to what you're going to do, I would embrace that and get engaged in advanced technologies and platforms and figure out how that fits within your world and what that can do to accelerate and simplify or make better what you're either studying or working on or will be launching or otherwise spending your time on.
Thank you for that. Chris, would you like to share your last thoughts with us?
Sure.
Yeah, I think to me, the word productivity is key. Anything and everything that we do as human beings we should ask the question: is what I'm doing productive for the world at large? And if the answer is yes, then you move forward. If not, figure out what would make it productive and do that. And I believe our platform was an answer to one such question that as founders we had and tried to answer.
Thank you so much for that.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot, sirs. It's really been an interesting and inspiring discussion for all the students present here. And we would like to... just a minute. So, the students really learned a lot about the future of digitization and what the future holds for all of us. And I would like to thank you on the behalf of the Institute of IIT Delhi and the student community. Thank you so much.
Any questions before we wrap up? Any questions from the students that you guys
If
have?
any students
before
have any
we-
questions regarding the topics?
Maybe
would be great.
two questions from the audience. Should I pick on someone? Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks for your time. Good luck with everybody.